This is not an anonymous question because we've received this we always ask questions that we've received from multiple people so that we can be more generous with our information. And this question specifically is very much tied to this episode you're about to hear. How do I get someone to commit? It's a very generalized question, but I also hear the undertone of this question is, how do I get someone to DTR? How do I get someone to only want to be with me? Or how do I get someone to be in a relationship with me? It's all of those questions rolled up into one.
Well, I don't think you could ever get someone to commit. I think that is number one. Forcing someone to commit or doing ultimatums, in my opinion, never the best path. Personally, I'd want to make sure someone wants to commit because they want to. And I think this goes for all stages of relationships. Like to bring it back even to wedding rings, like I know of people that have like printed out like, ads or rings from the internet and like put them on their partner's computer or something that like really just be like drills home every day to propose. And I don't know, personally, I'd rather that come from them. Like, it could be a discussion we have, obviously. I think doing an ultimatum and forcing that hand is never the best path, in my opinion. I think that is at all stages of a relationship. Personally, I think it's open conversation is the best path. Like, even the DTR conversation, I personally feel mixed on it. Like, I know a lot of people are like, when's the right time to DTR? When should I have the DTR conversation? My personal opinion is like, if you are asking the question, that kind of means like you're not even in the right place to be doing it. Like, if it's so unclear whether someone's like seeing a bunch of people or not, that kind of means that like there's a little bit of a disconnect going on. And I personally think maybe the better approach is like, what are you actually trying to get more of? Is it more time together? Is it a deeper connection? Is it, a feeling of security? Like, what is that? And then have that conversation. Like, let's say you're seeing someone every 2 weeks, for instance, and you're like, I want to know where they're at to have a DTR. But like, is really the main thing that you just need to see each other a little more frequently? Maybe you should work on that before having this more like official commitment conversation. Because I think sometimes when things aren't going like organically, that's when, like the conversations come out of left field and you don't get the answer you necessarily want.
That's right. The word commitment is also different for different people. Commitment could just mean you want to see each other more frequently, or commitment means you only see each other in a monogamous way. So one, I would try to define what a commitment means to me and why that kind of commitment is important. But to Julie's point, you can't force someone to commit to you. I've seen many relationships fail because of that ultimatum in the beginning. Either we are in a relationship as a couple, or I'm ending this. And what you're doing is threatening your partner. That's not a great way to start a relationship, because at any point during this relationship, they're going to think I was forced or I was tricked, I was scammed into this relationship out of fear. Yeah. So I think you can't force someone to commit to you. And two, this question feels to me kind of like chicken or the egg. It kind of feels like, well, I want to get someone to commit to me so then I can commit myself to them. Versus if you truly want to commit to someone in the way that you want, then you commit to them first. You delete the dating apps. You show them that you're committed instead of waiting for them to show that back. Because if you do that, you're never going to get anywhere. The last thing you should be doing in this situation is to hold resentment because you expected something and you're not getting it. And two, forcing your partner or putting your partner on the spot. Hey, in the next 2 minutes, can you decide, do you want to be in a relationship with me? That scares the shit out of people, even if they want to be in a relationship with you. We've heard this on our podcast. We've heard this from our listeners. You never want to back someone into a wall. So go a level higher and think, what does commitment mean to me, and how can I show commitment to my partner, and see if they're on board with it.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating how people talk about the difference between being exclusive and then the
Yes.
difference of being in a relationship. And I think it goes back to like what you were saying, Yue, is like, what is your definition? Because you still might not be on the same page if you're, you know, whatever your terms you're agreeing to, if you have different definitions of what those terms are. I mean, I personally think it's just best to have the conversation of like what commitment means to you, or like what does being even exclusive mean to you? Like, how do they differ? Are they the same? Like, everyone has it's so interesting. I feel like everyone has different
Very.
definitions of everything. Like, even people will be like, "Oh yeah, I dated this person," then you find out they went on like 2 dates.
Yes.
You know, it's
Yes.
like
All the time.
dated is such a loose term. Exclusive, they're all such loose terms, even though they're like defining things. It's very fascinating, the world
also-
we live in.
Also, when you set boundary, like exclusivity does not show someone's state of mind, right? If I'm exclusive with someone, it doesn't mean that I'm automatically committed to them. It just means I'm only seeing them. But
Right.
I could be committed to someone else emotionally. I don't know. So even asking for exclusivity doesn't exactly get to the true intent of being committed.
No.
So you have to separate the two and think, again, what is my intention here? Julie, you asked such a great question. Why do I want this? What am I actually asking for? The only part I would challenge a little bit is I do believe in the DTR conversation because it is about entering into a relationship and penning that contract, as transactional as that sounds. Because I learned this the hard way. I talk about my boyfriend that I had in Beijing who didn't believe that being on the dating apps was a form of cheating.
Right.
He didn't, it was not in his vocabulary to even say cheating. But to me, that was ultimate betrayal on his part. So if we can have the DTR conversation and set these, I hate saying guidelines, but at least like contractual agreements, or align on what we think makes a healthy relationship, then we can at least know where our boundaries are.
Just to be clear, I don't dislike the DTR conversation. I think it's important because it sets the intention. What what my opinion is on it is that it should not come out of left fields for either party. If it is, then I think there's more that you need to work on. Like, I think it's one of those things that should, like, if you're spending all your time with someone already, it's clear that you're heading in that direction. And I think, like, having the conversation of being like, oh yeah, like, you're my boyfriend, you're my girlfriend, whatever, or we're exclusive, whatever that is, I think that is important because it does make both people, like, step up and be more committed to it. But that being said, like, I don't think I feel like a lot of people fall to the DTR conversation when things aren't going their way.
Right.
Like, they're like, oh, this person barely texts me. They never want to hang out.
Yeah,
I haven't
I
seen
need to
them
know
in
if
a
they want to
month."
be my
Right. And it's like, well, you kind of have your answer there. Like, what else can you do? That's what I mean a little more. Like, I think, like, I've had DTR conversations that have been, like, walking, and it's like, oh, like, you're my girlfriend, right? Like it's so
Right.
obvious, you know? It's like, yeah, obviously. And I think, I mean, I thought it was nice. Like, my boyfriend now and we deleted, like, Hinge together. And I thought that was, like, a nice ceremony that, like, did change the tone of our relationship. It made us be like, okay, we're focusing on each other only. And it did change the intention. So I think it is good to have those milestones, but I don't think it's like a patch for when things aren't going well.
Right. It's all about the intention, and you can't resort to it as like when people try to save their marriages by getting pregnant. You just
Right.
can't do it. You can't force people into committing to you. Also, the surprise attack, nobody wants a surprise attack. Same with proposals. Nobody wants to be surprised when they're getting the timing of the proposal should be or can be a surprise. But the
Right.
idea of the proposal should never be a surprise.
Right. I
That's
mean, the whole
scary.
thing, I mean, this is like a whole other tangent that we should probably go into another day a little more deep. But I think sometimes, too, if someone's not on the same page at the same time as you, it doesn't mean that it's over either. Like, I've heard many of stories where, like, one person wasn't ready to get married yet. The other person really wanted to. and they kept the relationship going, and eventually they both got to that point. That being said, they were clearly already like committed to each other, so I would never recommend like someone that's like never seeing a person to be like, oh, I'm just gonna hold out hope. But like if they're seeing someone frequently and they're like, hey, I'm not there fully yet, like maybe it's okay to keep going with it. It's not always like hard, fast rules, but I think you know in your gut like if someone's kind of on the same page as you or not.
Absolutely. You got to listen to your gut. I feel like I went through exactly that with my current boyfriend. We had the DTR. It was informal, but we had a DTR conversation. And he said, I only want to be with you. I'm not ready for labels, though.
Yeah.
And I can work towards that, but the labels really scare me. And I was in agreement to that because labels don't mean much to me, but that's all I knew from previous relationships is that you jump into labels. And I think 2 or 3 months later, he just naturally started calling me his girlfriend.
Right.
And it wasn't even like, oh, now we are officially boyfriend, girlfriend. It's like you naturally just evolve into that next phase, whatever that next phase